I would go out the back door at the same time that he came in the basement door so he wouldn't hear the door. And then I would go run across the lawn and go down in the woods. And I would just sit on this log in the woods for hours and just feeling so helpless and afraid and not knowing where to go, not knowing what to do for I don't know how many days.
What is up, everybody? And welcome back to the Schooling Struggle Podcast. It is our belief that the only guarantee in life is that we are all going to struggle, and how we choose to embrace our struggles is what empowers us to become the best versions of ourselves. How is it going? My name is Pete, coming to you from Heartland, Vermont, and I'm super psyched about tonight's episode. But before I introduce tonight's guest, I want to lead off with a little anecdote. The other day, my daughter came home from school, and she was like, "Hey, Daddy, I learned something really cool from my PE teacher that I want to share with you." And I was like, "What is it?" And she's like, "He was talking about some of the ways that McDonald's makes their food. And he was talking about the chemicals that they use with the chickens that are in the chicken McNuggets." And it kind of planted the seed in my brain. It's like, "Ooh, this dude sounds pretty cool. He kind of speaks my language. Is right up my alley." And then like 2 days ago, she came home, maybe a little bit more than that. I don't remember the exact day. And she said, "Oh, Daddy, I got to tell you what happened in school today." I was like, "What?" She's like, "There were a couple boys that were talking about how tough and strong they were. And my PE teacher intervened and he said, 'You know who the toughest and strongest people are on the earth?'" And I was like, "Oh, this PE teacher of yours sounds awesome." And as I was having this conversation with my daughter, my wife chimed in and said, "Oh, Mr. Justice from school, he is awesome. I sat in on one of his health lessons the other day. And basically what he was sharing with the students is exactly what you talk about on your podcast, like navigating challenge and overcoming obstacles and those types of things." So that day I asked Lauren to go into school and ask Mr. Justice if he'd be willing to come on the podcast. And live and in person tonight, we have none other than Adam Justice, my daughter's PE teacher, my wife's colleague, and I'm super psyched to get into the conversation. So Adam Justice, welcome to the show.
Hey, Pete, thanks for having me, man. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, I just want to lead off by saying truly, thank you for the message that you're instilling on the youth that you're working with each day, and particularly, my daughter and her classmates. I'm just super psyched to have you in her life and ways that you're communicating with her. Really cool lessons that are just outside fleeing, chasing, and dodging and the regular PE stuff. So yeah, thanks.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thanks. That's so flattering. I think it was French fries actually. But,
was it?
Yeah,
she remembered it as chicken nuggets. Yeah. So.
Oh man.
But it's funny.
Yeah.
She, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I'm proud to say it too, is she's never had McDonald's, and in her, it's kind of been vilified by me, and for better or for worse. So for you to kind of hop on my back with that, just scare her away a little bit longer, I think is really cool. Because I work in a high school and kids think McDonald's is the coolest thing. I'm like, as long as we can stay this off as long as possible in my daughter's mind. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, McDonald's and ranch dressing seems to be heavily consumed. It should definitely be just reduced a little bit at least.
Agreed, for sure. For sure. So in our correspondence prior to the episode, I asked you what you wanted to discuss, and we can get into that in a moment. But for our family of listeners out there, I'd just be curious to know, the way I like to set the table for the conversation is to set the context for our conversation tonight. What do you feel is important for the listeners to know about you as we get ready to dive into our conversation for this evening?
I guess I would say, I'm kind of a pretty simple guy. I really have one goal, and that's just to be a good husband and father. And that's all. Other things kind of come along and I might pursue them and I get really interested in them. But if they ever conflict with that main goal, then kind of turn the wheel back. I grew up in New Hampshire. Growing up was a lot of fun. I mean, when in my younger years, teenage years got a little tumultuous for sure. Went off to college for a bit, which is great. Met my wife. My wife is the absolute greatest person. She's fantastic. She's the other half of me, and she's someone I very much count on and lean on, and a very capable, smart, intelligent, wonderful, amazing human. She's kind of a warrior. Yeah, my son is named Morrison. He's 2. I guess that's really all. I'm a pretty simple dude. I'm a PE teacher. I am a woodworker. I make wooden salad bowls and wooden earrings and stuff. Feel free to check out Justice Woodcraft on Etsy. I just kind of like to go outside and have a good time and spend time with my friends.
It's awesome. Every now and again, I'll be talking or having conversations with people that I know, and someone's name will come up, and they'll inevitably share their opinion or their thoughts or their perspectives about this person. And for listeners, Adam and I have not had a conversation prior to right now. This is the first time we've ever had a conversation. But I will tell you, Mr. Justice, that a number of people that are in my orbit have just said absolutely wonderful things about who you are and how you go about your life and how you interact with other people. And when there starts to be a theme of when every single person you talk to that knows this person just raves about who they are as a person and what they're doing with their life, that's a pretty clear indicator that, in some way, shape, or form, they're living with purpose and fulfillment, and they are moving closer to carrying out their life mission. And one of the challenges as a podcast host is when you ask someone to share about themselves who's incredibly humble, they're reluctant to do that. So it's sometimes I'm trying to get the listener to know how awesome this person is, and the person doesn't really want to talk about how awesome they are. But I will just tell the listeners out there that anytime I've talked to someone about Mr. Justice, they've just raved about who you are as a person and how you carry yourself. And I think that just speaks volumes to who you are.
Well, that's great to hear. I would say my self-consciousness and anxiety doesn't make me feel that way. So.
So when I reached out to you and asked you if you'd be willing to come on and just have a conversation with me based on what my wife and daughter shared, I asked you what you thought would be a cool topic to start with. And my wife shared that in your health lesson with her students, you were just talking about how do we navigate the challenges of our life, or how do we take obstacles and make them opportunities for ourselves. So I think that's kind of a cool place for us to start and to kind of set the table with there. And you can kind of take it anywhere you want. I shared with Adam before we got on that oftentimes I have a structure and a format and a plan for every episode, but this is just a blank sheet of paper in front of me, and we're just going to freewheel it. And wherever we end up, we end up. So I'm super psyched to have this conversation. So feel free to take this wherever you want.
One thing that always kind of passes through my head maybe 1,000 times a day is life is long, and just got to keep kind of going. I know that sounds almost cliche and kind of silly, but it really, it's going to knock you down time and time again. Every single person I've encountered has the same thing. And every time you think you're kind of like, above it, especially I feel like kids have that, like, what do they say? Kids bounce when they fall or something. Kids have that like indestructible nature to them. Like in my classes, I'm really just trying to point out basically how you can feel indestructible. You can tell yourself all these things, but if I ask around this room right now who feels anxious, every single hand goes up. If I ask who's having a hard time making a friend, every single hand goes up. If I ask who's feeling not safe all the time, a lot of hands go up. And it's something that having those kids that do have that safe and structured household is amazing. That's obviously the goal. That's my dream for my own kid. But having them be able to see the other kids in the struggle is really important for me, because kids aren't wearing that on their sleeve. And I know from kind of firsthand experience, I went through all of middle school and high school being like physically and verbally abused, and nobody really knew. I was actually even talking to my friends today, Patty Dayton, he's an awesome dude. He was mentioning how like he can remember things back in the day with my dad getting like hot or like heated, and then he would like go home, and as a kid he's like, and then I would just move on. He's like, but in hindsight, I never really thought about like what's happening next. Just very interesting. I never had a teacher ask me about it. I never had a teacher say anything. I'm not not saying that's their weight to carry. They should see every line. I am a teacher, and that's so challenging. But that's definitely what I'm trying to do in the classroom and stuff, is kind of shine a light on the idea that every single one of us in the classroom is struggling, but we're not talking about it because our society isn't open to that conversation yet.
What's interesting about this podcast is I launched this platform because I was very close with my high school students, and I wanted to continue to have the opportunity to be their teacher after they graduated. So now they can tune in each week and get my thoughts and perspectives. And what's really interesting about the analytics is only about a quarter of the people who listen to this podcast are kind of in that age demographic that could be my former students. And it's a lot of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So when I hear you say, if I ask this classroom who's feeling anxious, who's feeling uncomfortable, who might be feeling unsafe in different times in their life, that transfers way beyond a group of fourth graders, right? That goes up. That's every human. It's a really universal thought or perspective on interacting with or working with other people.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. I feel like there's a lot of almost like a lack of culture, history, or like heritage and all. Even listening to Nick Wolf's episode, which was awesome. He talked about like his farm homestead and how it's kind of like generation after generation. He really wanted to leave it great for the next people. And that level of like caring for something, having an example of someone else caring for something, and these like positive role models kind of showing the way to be a steward for the land and kind of like foster the world around you is not really what's happening in social media and our media and on a movie. And it's unfortunate how often people are so full of hate about everything. I mean, even take Star Wars. The new Star Wars came out and everybody hated it. But when I was a little kid and those new Star Wars came out, everybody hated it then, but now they love it. And it's kind of like, do you want more or not? I just feel like there's this level of almost like everyone wants to jump down each other's throats and attack each other. And even just the way my students will talk to each other, I often reference going up the ladder. Like there's a lot of rungs in the ladder before you get to the top. And if you start your tone at the top of the ladder, like shouting, then you kind of skipped a lot of the rungs. There won't be any rungs below you. So, like, kind of working your way up, like, hey, asking a question first and things like that. But I feel like there's just so much, I don't know, anger in the world, a personal alarming amount of about anger and that idea of really feeling mad and having a hard time let go of that.
You talked about the ladder. If you kind of go right to the top with your anger and you're yelling and screaming and having a fit and you're already at the top rung, and that's your second step, so to speak.
Yeah.
There isn't anywhere else you can go from there, right? So like you're kind of stuck at the top and you're not achieving or you're not moving the situation forward in any way, and there's nowhere else to go. So that's kind of when you go from 0 to 100 in a blink of an eye, you're kind of stuck there and there's nowhere else to go. But for you and I, teaching young students is how do we go one step at a time. And I think that carries over to so many aspects of life. Like I'm a fitness nerd and I overtrain often and I injure myself. And like I've learned that coming back from injury is like the metaphor. I thought of this a little while ago, but the metaphor for coming back from injury is if you just rest the injury until it doesn't hurt and then you just go back full tilt, you're just going to injure yourself again. So I use the beach as my metaphor. So oftentimes if you're at the beach, you see people like running into the ocean full speed, and inevitably once you run to the ocean full speed, at some point you trip and kind of fall in face first into the water, right? Like that's coming back from injury for me is like, I'm injured, but I'm just going to rest until it feels good. And then it feels good. I'm going to run into the ocean full speed and injure myself again. Right. Well, I've learned that coming back from injury has to be this very, very deliberate, methodical, one step at a time into the ocean. And you never run into the oceans. That way you never trip and fall down. You just kind of one step at a time. And I think that has carried over other aspects of my life, like dealing with anger, like setting goals, like how can I just take this one step at a time and ease my way into the ocean instead of just running full tilt and tripping and falling on my face? I am a ready, fire, aim kind of guy. Like, let's take action and think later.
Yeah.
And that has been an incredible help for me in my life, but it's also been an incredible hindrance. Hearing you talk about like dealing with anger and some of what you've learned, how can we apply that? And that's interesting to me. And something you said, you often hear the term life is short, and you just said the opposite of that. You just said life is long, which is really cool.
There's a definite layer, and I think this affects a lot of people with trauma, is like this layer of you're in it for so long. You're stuck. You get in these weird routines. I used to get home from school in like high school, and I would get home like maybe a half hour before my dad or something. And then I would go and like hang out for a minute. And then when he got home, I would go out the back door at the same time that he came in the basement door so he wouldn't hear the door. And then I would go run across the lawn and go down in the woods. And I would just sit on this log in the woods for hours until he either left or my mom got home or my brothers got home. And the amount of days that I sat there in this scared, feeling at the time like I'm angry, but now looking in hindsight and realizing where to put that anger is truly in fear. and just feeling so helpless and afraid and not knowing where to go, not knowing what to do for I don't know how many days is really just kind of digs the anger deep inside of you. And I say to my students all the time, it's like, feel your feelings. Like if you lose a game, are you allowed to say like, oh darn? Like, yeah, sure. Like you lost, that's okay. But do you need to yell and scream and throw something? Like that's a different line. And that's kind of that kind of moving up the ladder idea and embracing failure. I think failure is the absolute best teacher we have. I mean, even you describing the wave idea is you kind of learn from experience. Trying to come back from injury a couple times and you go full tilt and then you're like, maybe I'm not 25 anymore. And that's like it's a hard thing to kind of get accustomed to. It takes much longer road. It takes a lot more commitment.
Yeah. I mean, I say to my students all the time, the easy thing is easy to do. That's why we do it. But the
Yeah.
hard thing is where the reward is, right? And like, the parenting paradox, there's 500 students in the high school that I teach at, and none of them ever truly like get under my skin, or I'm never short tempered with any of them. But I come home to one 8-year-old, and it's harder for me to manage one 8-year-old than it is 500 high schoolers, and I can feel the temperature rises quick, and I want to raise the voice and say, it's like, how many times have I told you in taking a bath to keep the water in the tub and not on the tile floor? Those types of things. And so when you talk about or I guess when I talk about kind of easing into the water with the relationships is the place where that's where I need to be really, really diligent about, okay, like don't let this get away from me too quick, and don't let it rise too quick. Or as you said, don't go up too many rungs too fast. I think one thing I'm hearing you say is that you experienced some level of discomfort or trauma growing up, and that your goal is to be. I had a student say to me, Mr. D, I have one goal in my life: is to be better than the man before me. So you
Mm-hmm.
want to be a better father to your son than the father that you received. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and it's really weird and double-edged, and I think that was the hardest part about the relationship with my father is so much of who I am is his teachings. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
before I was 12, it was kind of great. He was my coach in a lot of stuff, and he would play catch with me all the time, and we'd go camping, and we had like annual trips. I was 11 and didn't have really any semblance of what was going on, but obviously he was slipping further and further into drinking and just kind of like getting a bit off the rails with that. And he would go on like long walks at night and stuff. Definitely, I didn't realize at the time, but he was going and drinking and stuff like that and coming back. And it was, of course, straining the relationship with him and my mom. But I don't understand what's going on. I just hear my mom and dad arguing every single night, like lots of yelling, lots of swearing, just absolutely all the time, which I don't know. It really, again, just kind of wears into you. And it also created this weird thing. I remember listening to you in a past episode talking about how you're trying to stop swearing, like overall, or how you did stop swearing. And I was like, gosh, that is so commendable because I'm so good about it at school and stuff. But then like I find myself in the wood shop or something, and I definitely like let them fly a little bit more. And no one's around, and it's not going to harm anybody. And my son is not seeing the whatever, but it is kind of like feel your feelings a little bit. I mean, humans are pretty weird. 700 years ago, what were we up to compared to now? And we're trying to like put all of this in a box, and I don't think we can.
Yeah.
Like we have AI right now. That was like a joke my whole childhood. Like, and now it's like, oh geez, AI in the school again, and I don't know. I feel like the more we can revert back to these simpler things, taking care of each other, trying to do one act of kindness, doing what you can, and understanding that the people that are volunteering, I commend them. But it's also, I commend the people that are not volunteering because they don't have the bandwidth for it.
Right.
And there's a weird judgment in the world that I think just feels like everything's like a competition. One thing I say in the gym all the time is GGWC, which is a good game. Who cares who wins?
Mm.
And a student actually helped me create that. And it's just kind of funny. We say it at the end of every single game. We don't really keep score in my classes, but we still compete. And I'll still, when we do keep score, I'll describe that at the beginning. But I think there's way too much time invested in like needing to win something that doesn't matter, in my personal opinion. That doesn't mean people shouldn't try and things they're passionate about, because that term doesn't matter is interesting. Because like to you, CrossFit is that matters. That's a part of who you are. So like it's not that's not at all what I'm saying about something like that, but more like, a kid coming into a game in PE, first time they've ever played it. They don't have some like strong emotional tie with this game or something, and they lose their lid over losing like the first round. And that's something that I see, and I'm like, gosh, that's such a taught behavior. It's such a modeled behavior for that student. I don't know how to move past that.
There are a million different responses I could just give for everything that you just shared after being a PE teacher for 18 years and the CrossFit reference, all that. Like, and I think so. So my goal for my students, and I teach a class called Better Than Yesterday, which is a mindset based class. And the goal of Better Than Yesterday is not to compare ourselves, because comparison is a thief of joy. Is not to compare ourselves to what anybody else is doing, but to just strive to be a little bit better in whatever way we deem is important moving forward. A whole different conversation we could have off the record, but like if these developmental programs are going to say, oh, we're playing these sports to develop skills, but we're going to keep score, then you're not developing skills. Kids are going to play to win. So it's one or the other. You can't have both. And when I first started my very first like year or two teaching PE, I was like, oh, I'll just throw them together, make two teams, and we'll keep score. And it was an absolute train wreck. And then when I stopped keeping score in class, I said, no, we're not going to keep score. And kids are like, well, it's important. I want to keep scoring. I'm like, great, keep score in your head. If it's important to you, keep score in your head, but just don't share it. That's when my career started to really go well. And PE class for my students was awesome because the kids that want to keep score in their brain did, and 98% of the rest of them just had a much more enjoyable experience. And my friend who coaches like fifth grade AAU, he's like, it's either competitive or it's not. And if it's not competitive, let's teach skills and let's not keep score. Let's not keep score until high school, or what, everyone's going to have a different theory on that. And mine's pretty staunch in my brain after 18 years of experience. But yeah, so like the CrossFit thing for me, it's this, how can I strive to be a better version of myself? And my fitness is just a reflection of my journey as trying to be a better version of me. And you talked about with your students, like encouraging them to have permission to feel. And Todd and I had an episode about this book called Permission to Feel by this doctor named Mark Brackett. And I was just struggling with like giving myself permission to like feel. And my brother's like, hey, I read this book. It's awesome. Read it. And I read that book and it was really, really helpful for me. But one thing that I do is I ask the students to take note of where their mindset is when they enter class and when they leave class, so they can see like, how does a workout impact my mental well-being? And I think just giving ourselves permission to kind of take a second, realize where we are, is super, super important. You mentioned when you're in a group of kids, acknowledging how they feel. And you talked about experiencing different challenges when you were growing up. And I'm curious, is part of your mission as a teacher to get kids who their trauma or their challenge might be the norm and they don't even recognize that it's trauma or challenge? Are you, trying to help them to recognize that? Like, so I guess my question is, for you growing up, it sounded like you left the house, you went down in the woods, you hid, you were aware that there was something challenging going on, where for some people, this is just normal life. I'm like, they don't even recognize it because it's all they've ever known. And
I
how do
think
you kind of navigate that?
Well, I think interestingly enough, I think it's strange to say this, but I was luckier than a lot of my students because my trauma didn't start until I was 11 or 12. I mean,
Mm.
maybe like late tens or whatever, somewhere around there. It definitely is a blur as far as the origin story or whatever. But a lot of my kids are so young. I mean, my students are in kindergarten and through fourth grade, and it's more like I would love to be someone that can see that. Not really for myself. I don't. That's not like some weird credit thing that you get. But like I mentioned earlier, like my teachers didn't see that. I guess it was always surprising to me because I felt like my personality changed so much. I kind of like became more introverted, and I was very headphoned walking down the hallways, and I was still pretty social. I kind of knew the social rules at that point and had figured out how to play the game by then. I did a lot of sports, so I kind of got all that. But as strange as it is, I think one of the best things in my life was my father passing away when I was just getting out of college, because it just kind of, I don't know, I didn't have anywhere else to put that fear. And I kind of want to just provide a place where kids can feel like they can be their true selves, because I think we're all kind of hiding behind this weird mask. But the more people come out and show themselves, the more people love them. I mean, take the people that are the most famous, whatever, pop singers or musicians or actors or something. They're usually people that were kind of maybe weirdos back in the day and just kind of did their own thing and pursued what they liked. I mean, I use YouTube as an example for my students all the time. I always try to dispel being a YouTuber. The kids always want to just like hop on a screen and be like, hey, like and subscribe. And that's not a thing. I show a bunch of videos of like all these role models. And then I talk about how, like, who are these people that you're seeing on YouTube and like, what are they doing? They're doing one of two things. They're either showing you something really cool that could educate you, which is a lot of why I use YouTube and stuff. But they're also maybe just trying to sell you something. And being able to decipher that, finishing the video and think, what was that person selling me? Know that Mark Rober, before he was a famous YouTuber, was a NASA engineer. So it's not like he started on YouTube making squirrel videos. And I think that's where kids are getting flipped around by media and by these things kind of promoting it. And I don't know, I guess to kind of get back to your point, I guess I really just want to shine a light on, I guess, what's actually going on out there a little bit. It's okay to be open with your trauma. It's okay to be open and tell someone what's going on and tell people your fears. I mean, I do a lot of like restorative justice circles, or at least just kind of sharing circles. And we always go around and do something goofy at first. Would you rather feathers or fur or something like that? And then the second question is always really serious. And then the third time around, we have to ask somebody about something they said. And one of them we didn't ask a question about it, but the second thing we did, we got all goofy and laughing in the first round. And then the second round, I said, what's your greatest fear? And we went around, the whole tone changed, but every single kid shared in every single class. And there were things like being alone, my parents dying, my dog passing away, not being able to find my way to my house. Like, they were such real things that were not like, I kind of didn't know where that lesson was going to go, like a lot of my lessons. And I was shocked that of course there's a couple kids that said pass, and that's totally their choice. But it was two kids out of 100 said pass.
Mm-hmm. And when we start to have these conversations about kids, like you said, you say to the students, consider the source, or I don't want my students to get tripped up or duped by people on YouTube. But we can say students, and we can be talking about 10-year-olds, but it's humans. It's
Yeah.
every age and every demographic that
Yes.
is impacted by the stuff that we're talking about right now. We all have fears. Like, what's your fear? And it's interesting you talked about the outdoor thing. So I had this vision a year ago that I wanted to take a bunch of kids out to a cabin in the woods and have them put their cell phones away. So I asked two of my colleagues if they'd join me on this endeavor. They're like, heck yeah, let's go. And we got the funding. And in 5 days, I'm taking 27 high schoolers out to
That's
a cabin.
amazing.
Yeah. And they have to put their cell phones, they have to give us their cell phones when they get on the bus, and they won't get it back for 3 days.
That's
And
perfect.
we have, like, they're all going to chip in for cooking and cleaning, and they're going to lead activities, and we're going to do all these things. But you're starting to give me some ideas of like conversations I can have with the students while I'm out there. We have electricity, we have running water, there's bathrooms, there's kitchens, but
Where are you going?
we're going for it. We're going out to a summer camp in Plymouth, Vermont, and it's a summer camp, but they have one winter cabin because it's March and it's winter in Vermont in March. But we have no clue what the weather's going to be. Like, we're going to be going hiking and gathering firewood and all these things, and it's really interesting. Like, I had them fill out a Google form with all this information. Like, we want to know their favorite meals, we want to know, who they'd prefer to have for a bunkmate. And we asked, what are you most excited about this trip? And what are you most nervous for about the trip? And much like you just shared, like, it's very real stuff. Like, they're worried, like, what if something happens to one of my family members while I'm gone? It's that type of stuff. And for many of these kids, they've never mind 3 days. They've never been 3 minutes without their cell phone. Like, it's like oxygen, it's like taking away their oxygen. And I commend them so much for being willing to step up. And I had this idea. I was like, I don't know if we're going to get 5 kids in the school that are willing to give up their cell phone for 3 days to go out to the woods. So I put it out there. I was like, I have this idea. Any students come to the information meeting, I'll tell you about it. Let's go. and we had 65 kids apply for this, and we
Oh my
had to
gosh.
pull a lottery to get to 27. It's a 30-person cabin, and so there's 3 chaperones and 27 kids. And I am so excited. Like, this has given me so much excitement for the past 6 months preparing for this. And like, now we're about to go to the grocery store and buy all the food and set up all the activities, and I'm just having a blast with it. And I have no clue what's going to happen. Like, it could completely blow up, but we're going to give it a run.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting how we almost kind of prescribe school to kids as if it's right for everybody. I can remember growing up and feeling the same way in a classroom that I felt in a doctor's office. So out of place. I did fine. I got B's and C's. I was right along the middle of the line, whatever, just enough that no one would really question me or whatever, and move me right along. But I don't know. It never felt right. And then the woods
Mm.
always felt amazing. And even in college, I got to college and I have this dorm room and everything. I ended up spending the majority of my time out in the woods. I mean, my freshman year, I went and built this little like shelter thing that end of the year, a bunch of kids like destroyed or whatever. So the next year I went and built one that's way farther out there.
Where'd you go
And
to college?
I went to college at Franklin Pierce in Ringe, New Hampshire.
Okay, yeah.
I ended up just like finding this sweet little area that was like pretty far in between these 2 trails, and nobody went up there. And I built this thing that kind of became known as the House of Justice. And I like, I don't know, I ended up kind of like living up there a lot. I slept up there a lot my senior year, and I'd go up there after classes every day. That's where I'd like eat my dinner. I only had enough money to pay for like the lunch meal plan, so I'd go and like wrap up sandwiches and stuff at lunch and bring them, and then like toast them over the fire for dinner and stuff. And my really good friends would always come up, and it was fun. It's kind of where I lived, and it's where I like studied for my finals and stuff. And
Mm.
I think it's just so weird how much. I mean, even take the model of a school. You go to a school, you're going to have 6 classes today that involve your brain, and you might have one that involves your body. You have 0 that involve your emotions. What's the
Yeah.
goal here?
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to dispel math. I'm not trying to dispel English or think that these
Yeah.
things are not valued or anything like that. But if we're really focused on raising children to be better people, what are we doing? I
I've
guess.
said it a million times on this platform, and I think my colleagues are getting sick of me in staff meetings and leadership meetings. But I say, I truly believe that the human condition is that all humans want to be noticed and enjoyed, and that I think is where we start. You and I could probably have this conversation for the next 18 hours. I think that's the most important thing, and kind of that's the beginning and end, in my opinion. Is how do we start that process with people?
I was gonna say, even my own son. I mean, he's only 2.5, but we recently got a call or like a message from the teachers that was like, "Do you want to do a teacher meeting?" And we're like, "Yeah, of course." And they're at first they're like talking to us about and doing a great job, and they're telling us about like, yeah, he's here with his reading and here with this and here with this, and we just had one question: Is he nice?
Yeah.
Is he
Yep.
friendly?
Yep.
Is he social and calm?
Yep.
Because that is what the entire goal is. I mean, even with hiring through my whole era of growing up, it was always like technology. Get a technology degree,
Yep.
you'll be good. And now, I mean, even hearing, I listened to a bit of Todd's struggles with all that and talking about how things are getting automated and everything. And that, I mean, a lot of people that went that route, I think that's getting turned, especially with AI. I
Mm.
mean, my wife's an English teacher, and ChatGPT can write a mean paper right now.
Yep.
So I think we're just in this different world. And you talking about your students and being surprised that so many people showed up for it. I think there's a lot of people that are thirsting for something else. You
Yep.
can scroll, but a lot of these kids are alone and scrolling, and their social media is pretty hateful and
Yep.
like competitive, and they want something different. I think a lot of adults are feeling the same way. And I actually did a program in high school that's really similar to what you're creating, which is called Project Climb. And it would be packed every single time. We'd go up into the White Mountains. I went to like Zealand Falls and Carter Notch, and we would get to go up and stay in these huts. And nobody really had a cell phone at the time anyway.
Yeah.
But there was no cell phones. We're hiking literally with firewood strapped to our backs and thinking we're thinking we're Iron Man and Iron Woman climbing up these mountains, back to that, childhood invincibility or whatever.
Yeah.
It gives you something else. It's more than the media.
I heard that kind of the next big thing in travel. I don't think we're talking about the next year or two, but in the next decade or so, people are going to pay a premium for what in this article is coined as authentic experiences, right? So as the metaverse becomes a normal part of life, and everyone has their
Oh my
what were
gosh.
the new what iVision? What's the new Apple glasses thing called?
Oh, I
I
don't know.
forget what it's called, but they look like snowboarding goggles, and you put them on, and it's like your whole world is yeah. But as that
Like
stuff
walk.
becomes
Oh,
more
wait, no, I've seen this.
normalized,
I've seen this on social media with people like walking in through the cities with them,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's
I think as
bizarre.
that stuff becomes more normalized and we can kind of quote unquote get away into the digital world, I think that these authentic experiences, such as going off into the woods, they're going to be at a higher premium, and there's going to be people that are yearning to do this type of stuff, and I think that is real. Oh, just one thing that I want to say is you were talking about that approach or that emotion, and you were talking to your son's teachers about how things are going to school, and what I share with our daughter, and what I share with my students is like I truly believe this is that if we're willing to work hard and treat people well, we can do anything. Like those are the two ingredients to success in life. We work hard and treat people well.
I mean, even with grading at schools, I don't think that I get so frustrated with the grading system.
Same.
Especially with elementary school, and then we put the grade in, and well, they're still not at proficient. And but in a scenario when they're might never be at whatever the quote unquote like proficient is, again, why are we comparing ourselves to each other like that?
Right.
What are we doing? Like from my friendship circles and stuff, I have what I would describe as kind of a mountain of trauma, but that doesn't make any of my friends or family members experiences any less and they're just different. They're just different things that have happened to us, and the way we perceive them and the way we hold on to them and the way that they change in our minds as memories do. I don't know. I mean, we can't really be so quick to judge and so quick. So I think grading really gets my goat a little bit. Like I wish we could get rid of grading, focus more on potential for better or whatever.
Yeah.
Something, this is what's going great. Here's an area that would be awesome to work on at home or work on or, put a little practice in.
I find it ironic at the high school level. They say, "Oh, we want you to learn to collaborate. We want you to learn to work together." Yet we have a class rank, so we're pitting you. We're pitting you against each other here in this environment, so you can be judged by the prospective colleges. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
interesting.
And number one gets a title. You
Yeah,
get the belt.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I heard, I mean, I hear that the pressures of that are exactly what's pushing kids the other direction a lot of times though.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've seen it. Yeah, for sure.
I just really want a very simple, simple existence. I love to just wood turn and hang out with my family and hang out with my friends.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I do want to finish out with one other question for you to kind
Yeah.
of bring it all full circle. You did mention your trauma in the past, and you mentioned kind of your goals now and what you love to do now. And I'm really curious to know that the bridge in between. How did you navigate your challenges to kind of get you to where you are at this point, either tactically or tangibly? Like, what are some things that you did? I'm guessing time outside in the woods was like there. That was a big part of it from what you shared about your college experience. But if you were going to talk to some people, I'm not going to say students, but anybody that's been through some trauma in the past and they want to move forward, like based on your personal experience and your professional knowledge, what would you share?
I mean, much like physical activity, it's the same amount of work. It's the same amount of work every single day, mentally and emotionally. I was feeling overwhelmed this morning, just by this morning be overwhelming. I don't know. And sometimes I just wake up and feel that way. I don't really remember my dreams a lot. I haven't for a long time. I went through a stint where I kind of had like a lot of really scary dreams for a couple of years. And I don't know. I don't really remember them anymore. But sometimes I'll wake up and I'll feel as if literally as if I had my adrenaline pumping, as if I was back in some sort of traumatic event. And I mean, if anyone's ever read like The Body Keeps the Score, that is kind of the reality of the event. And I don't know if that's what it is. I mean, even before class this morning, I went and laid in the fitness center. The fitness room well at Heartland, and just laid on the floor in there for 10 minutes before I went into class and did a headspace. It's a constant effort. It's constantly catching yourself messing up and trying to fix it, being honest with yourself. I would say a healthy dose of self hate, but not really, like not hating yourself like I don't like myself or who I am or things like that, but wanting things to be better and making strides to do that when they're hard is not a bad thing. Like, it's definitely very challenging. I just try to take a step forward or move sideways, but I really am just trying to not slip backwards all the time. It's 100% a constant battle. If I'm not up on it, if I'm not taking time for myself, if I'm like doing 12 things, 12 days in a row with no break and I'm going really late, and that's just not, I can't do that. I cannot do that. And I have set times, and I hate myself for it all the time, but I have set times, like usually like 8:30. I mean, depending on if my son is asleep or not. That's always a gray area. Of course, maybe it'll get pushed to 10. Who knows? But like ideal night, let's say everyone's going to bed easy, 8:30, I'm done with working, whatever that means. I'm not working out. I'm not doing schoolwork. I'm not talking about bills. I can't, because if I do, then I'm just ramped up and I'm going to bed ramped up, and I'm going to feel awful for a day or two. It really hangs on you that same way. I've heard you describe like not working out, or how at least the opposite of that, how working out in the morning has given you that kind of like passion for the day. Not being mindful of those other things really rips that passion right out of your day and makes me very angry. I wish I wasn't so angry. A lot of people I talk to say I'm not like showing that, or at least like I feel so much more angry 100% of the time that I think I'm being perceived. And it's like something that has been in me for so long that you don't know where to put it. And I've worked with therapists, and I've tried to just basically constantly keep going with it. It's an uphill battle, and it's a bit like Sisyphus. Keep pushing the boulder up the hill, and it's going to roll down again, because life is coming. I mean, even this past year, or I guess December of 22, I just woke up and my left ear was basically off. And still attached to my body. That's alarming. But it was, I'd lost more than 50% of the hearing in my left ear, and I had really intense tinnitus, and I had really intense vertigo. And I had to take like a month off work and go to the doctor a bunch of times. And I spent 28 hours in a hyperbaric chamber in like 14 different sessions. And I have a hearing aid now, and I still have the tinnitus, and I'll probably have that for the rest of my life. So, like, that's made peace and quiet is not something I've heard in over a year. Like the idea of like, ooh, let's like sit in silence, even in nature, which has been a bummer. I can't just like sit and listen to the trees anymore, because there's always a high pitched ringing in my ear.
Is that
And
what
that,
tinnitus is? Like a high
yeah,
pitched ringing in your ear?
yeah, it's basically like your ear is sending a signal to your brain, being like, "Hey, something's not working." To your brain's like, "Oh, let me send some feedback and make sure this is working." And it's getting the feedback, but it's not telling it to shut off.
Huh.
And the vertigo has gone away for the most part. I still get like little bouts. Like that's this morning when I wasn't feeling good. That was like something feels off, and I feel kind of dizzy. And so I had like a couple moments today, even teaching PE class. I remember I was standing in front of a class today and totally had a moment where I thought I was going to fall down on my face.
Wow.
And it's just, and then it's gone. And it was like, oh, that was my anxiety spiking. And then I felt that, and it related to me feeling vertigo. And so my brain put me there. It's kind of that, again, the body keeps a score type idea. It really, it's just constant battle. It's a constant battle. And having a good, clear goal that is attainable is probably the number one thing. You really got to set your sights on something, even if it's small, even if it's like seemingly what you would describe in your head as stupid. Like tomorrow, I'm not going to self harm for 1 hour,
Yeah.
or tomorrow, I'm not going to go and eat way too much. from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, or you know
Yeah.
what I mean? These little things that in your head you're like, oh, that's so stupid. Again, it's that ladder system, one step up the ladder. Because even who I am now is light years difference from who I was when this all happened. I mean, when this all happened and finished, I'm so fortunate I had my wife, because she's just amazing, and she's helped me through so much of it, and she's talked me through so much of it, and she's been willing to listen. And it's kind of just a constant battle. It's
Yeah.
just it's never going to end, but that's life, and that's why I say life is long. Life is
Yeah.
long, and I say that to my students a lot, and they always look at me kind of like with that wide eye, like, life is long, like what? But and I understand anything could happen. I guess that's, even I hear you talking about beating yourself up about like little stuff in other pod episodes, and that's so appropriate. I think we go through this, and that's why I like talking to the students so openly, because it's like we just kind of need to open up a little bit more as a society. I don't think we should wear our heart on our sleeve every single second. If I walked around talking, I'm pretty open about my trauma, but if I just walked around describing all of my trauma all the time, people are done with that very fast.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of like navigating that and making mistakes, having close friends that you can rely on. I have a lot of like consistency in my life right now. I
Mm.
eat the same exact lunch every day. I just make like beans and peas, and I have like a couple annual trips that I do with my best friends. Having those things to rely on, and these close friends that are all so caring, and all are kind of like, they would never probably say this, but I always say like they're kind of like above me. Like I'm always like punching up, like they're very accomplished, and they're also intelligent. And I'm very lucky to have a lot of friends that are like counselors and teachers. And there's a lot of stuff that if I didn't have them, I probably would have been a lot more prone to fall in on myself. Really, like, as much as when all that traumatic stuff goes through, you want to kind of run away and hide and get everyone away from you because you're so afraid. It's people that you need. And me losing my hearing this past year even showed me how much I've been like pushing so many people away. I mean, so many people showed up because I had to go to Dartmouth Hitchcock every single day for like 14 days. I had to call so many people, but it was crazy. I mean, my wife made a list and sent it out to family members, and the whole list was like filled out for every day in like a couple hours.
For people
And
to bring you to the hospital.
yeah,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
let me bring you food or anything, and it
Mm.
made me feel so uncomfortable because I am not someone to ask for things like
Leaning
that.
on people. Yeah.
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
also showed me that, what am I doing? Okay, I'm not leaning on anybody, but I sure am standing alone.
Mm.
I don't know. That's not really a better place to be. And as much as like the little things can make you want to like push people away, or feeling that those intense feelings can make you want to push people away, the more you can kind of fight that a little bit, the more it just kind of gets easier.
The theme that comes up a lot in our conversations on this podcast is awareness, because that's like the first step toward any change or any progress, and then the importance of personal connection. And I feel like over the last 50 minutes, as you and I have been talking, that has resonated again. You had this awareness of your trauma and this awareness of your anger. And what I'm hearing you say is one of the ways you cope with that is connecting with people, or staying connected with people that are super important in your life.
Yeah. If you really want them to be in your life, you have to take the step. Because I have friends that like don't call me, but I call them all the time, and we talk on the phone all the time, and we see each other all the time. It's not like they're not calling me because they're not friends with me and I'm friends with them. It's just like,
Yep.
it's okay to be the one that reaches out. That's a
Yep.
perfectly healthy thing. But having those connections in your life and being a little like strict about if they can be neutral, but as long as they're not negative in your life, that's a huge thing. That's a huge
Yeah.
thing.
Awesome. It was so cool to hear your thoughts and perspectives, and how you're continuing to navigate the challenges in your life, but how you've overcome and moved forward from many of the ones in your past too. Super cool. I'm just so grateful that you're in the orbit of my daughter and in that school. And I just want to thank you. It's been a pleasure.
No problem. Thanks for having me. I'm flattered.
To our family listeners out there, we appreciate your ears. We thank you for your time. We are incredibly grateful for your attention. We are the School and Struggle Podcast. We are out.